The successful tyrant has a few rules that he must stick to in order to get hold of power and to keep it. These rules have been followed by a number of dictators all around the world, including Joseph Stalin, Colonel Gaddafi, and Saddam Hussein. But these men all have one thing in common: they're dead. But the rules they followed are still there to be used and studied by the next generation of tyrants and dictators. So who exactly should we be careful about as the world's next tyrant? To answer that, we need to go back and see what we learned from the previous tyrants. Rule 1. Be a man of the people. Every tyrant knows that it is easier to deceive the people into accepting you before you can show your true colors. Saddam Hussein began his reign by buying food for random citizens and winning their affection even as he destroyed the economy. In Kenya, the promising candidate for tyrant status, William Ruto, has perfected this strategy even if it sometimes backfires and the people receiving the food end up in hospital for food poisoning. A significant part of Mr. Ruto's personal wealth was obtained while he was Minister for Agriculture during the same time the ministry lost billions through corrupt deals and irregular payments to companies linked to Mr. Ruto. It's funds like these that have been used over the years to buy the loyalty of his supporters and supply the food dished freely to make himself a man of the people. In order to maintain the facade of a man of the people, you also need to apply Rule 2: invent a humble backstory. Adolf Hitler was a failed artist. Saddam Hussein was an orphan, and William Ruto paints himself as a street preacher or a chicken farmer, depending on the day of the week. These are all humble jobs that the ordinary man can relate to, but what the tyrant won't let you know is their real story. Hitler's parents could afford for him to be an architect, but he refused to go study in the lap of luxury. Saddam Hussein was an orphan, but his uncle was a wealthy party official in Iraq's largest second party. As for William Ruto, he sold eggs in a market to get extra money when he was on holiday from a prestigious school in the capital city. Not exactly a poor man's son, but when you want the people to love you, the story you tell has to focus on the humility and exclude the true details of who you are. As you get the people to accept you, every growing tyrant knows you need to eliminate threats against you. There have been a number of suspicious deaths in Kenya linked to William Ruto, ranging from helicopter accidents to poisoning of security officials. When it was discovered that prominent lawyer Mutula Kilonzo was going to turn evidence against William Ruto to the International Criminal Court, it did not take long for death to visit the lawyer via poison at his home. Longtime critic and opponent Mr. George Saitoti was killed in a suspicious plane crash. He had openly dared Mr. Ruto to come clean on his involvement in several massacres or be exposed to the media. Employees are not safe either. 12 employees of Mr. Ruto's have been found dead under unclear circumstances. Did they know too much, or did their conscience catch up to them? Whenever people start asking too many questions about the dead bodies around you, the tyrant knows he must fall back to the people and give them something else to focus on. Idi Amin of Uganda used to say the international community was persecuting him. Saddam Hussein began a war with Iran, and Hitler turned the Jews into a common enemy. In Kenya, William Ruto has used more than one excuse to distract the people. In 2007, in his ethnic Kalenjin, he turned the Kikuyu community into a scapegoat, accusing them of settling in his tribal lands and taking economic opportunities away from the people. The result was a tribal genocide never before seen in Kenya. Today, the tactic has changed into a class war with Mr. Ruto inciting low-income earners and the unemployed against the middle and upper classes of society. The irony being that Mr. Ruto has always belonged to the very group he is inciting his supporters against. This class warfare in Kenya is the reason why we have decided to study Mr. William Ruto as an upcoming tyrant. All the classic steps of becoming a tyrant have been fulfilled except the last step, which requires a good opportunity to strike. In Kenya's powder keg of politics, Mr. Ruto's opportunity will most likely involve violence and bloodshed. His last political triumph already cost 300,000 lives, and that only got him appointed as deputy president.